Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, February 19th, 2026 meeting of the Active Transportation Commission. The meeting is now called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll to establish a quorum?
Thank you, Chair. I have Commissioner Amon. Commissioner Banks. Absent. Commissioner Gibson.
Here.
Commissioner Harris.
Here.
Commissioner Hodau.
Here.
Commissioner Hout.
Here.
Commissioner Moore.
Here.
Commissioner Rashio Patel.
Here.
Commissioner Rubenstein.
Here.
Commissioner Tao.
Here.
Commissioner Wadwani.
Here.
And Chair Gonzalez.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to remind members of the public and chambers that if you'd like to speak on an agenda item, please turn in a speaker slip before the item begins. After the item is called, we will no longer accept speaker slips. You will have 2 minutes to speak or less once you are called on. We will now proceed with today's agenda. And before we do that, I just want to say I'm going to create a little bit more of a new tradition here. Today, I'll be asking Vice Chair Gibson to read the Pledge of Allegiance after me. And after the meeting, if anyone would like to volunteer next month to split duties, I would appreciate that. So let's please rise if you're able for the opening acknowledgement in honor of Sacramento's indigenous people and tribal lands. To the original people of this land, the Niasan people, the Southern Maidu, Valley and Plains Miwok, Patu Wintu peoples, and the people of the Wilton Rancheria, Sacramento's only federally recognized tribe. May we acknowledge and honor the native people who came before us and still walk beside us today in these ancestral lands by choosing to gather today in the active practice of acknowledgement and appreciation for Sacramento's indigenous peoples, histories, contributions, and lives. Thank you. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I have the pleasure this evening of introducing two new commissioners. One is, I don't believe, here yet, but we'll start with Commissioner Rubenstein. Welcome, and please feel free to introduce yourself to the commission and our audience at home.
Hello, thank you for having me here. I was appointed by the mayor. My name is Daniel Rubenstein. I'm the Chief of Staff for the Division of Road Safety at Caltrans and one of the new Governor's Innovation Fellows. I'm excited to be here and to serve my home city. Thank you.
We're happy to have you here, Commissioner. And when Commissioner Amid Amin joins us, we'll be happy to allow them to have time to present themselves and share their information as well. Our first business today is the Commission staff report. Staff, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. For this month's report, we have two of our new corridor plans that are going into their first engagement phase. That is going to be the Arden-Auburn Mobility Plan and the Fruit Ridge Road Safety and Mobility Plan. We are doing our first round of engagement, so we're going to be doing our community advocacy group for Fruit Ridge is going to be next Monday on the 23rd, but our community meeting is going to be on March 4th at the Sacramento New Technology High School at 5:30, if anybody wants to attend. And for Arden-Auburn Mobility Plan, we are doing our community advisory groups, two of them, Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. But our community meeting is going to be March 11th, and that'll be at the Reason Center, the Reason Center off of Arden Way at 5:30 on the 4th. I also did want to report that the 2025 ATC annual report is moving through its cycle. We are going now to the Budget and Audit Committee after we were approved through the Personnel and Public Employees Committee, but we'll be going to the Budget and Audit Committee on March 10th for a presentation there. And then on to City Council, we are anticipating the end of March on March 31st. And that'll be a consent item going forward, and that'll be its final approval. And then I have one last thing to report. I would like to introduce, I'm very happy to do this. We have our newest associate planner here at the city. Liza Welsh is joining us. She started her second week. but is, yeah, we were very happy to have her. Someone, Mark, today told me that this is the second in a row meeting that I've gotten to introduce new staff. I'm lucky I get to actually continue that tradition through next month as well, as I get to introduce another new staff. So, but with that, I will hand it back to you, Chair, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. Next up is the approval of the consent calendar. Clerk, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on the consent calendar?
Thank you, Chair. I have no members who wish to speak on this item.
All right, wonderful. Are there any commissioners who would like to speak on the consent calendar? Vice Chair Gibson, please.
Hi, thank you. First, I want to see if we can make a log request to establish a subcommittee for the 2026 annual report. And just for the new commissioners, for just a little bit of context, every year the Active Transportation Commission puts together an annual report, as was mentioned, is going through the city processes with an update to the city's processes. We can now establish a subcommittee to meet and discuss this. I just want to get the ball rolling so we can have a subcommittee to discuss things as opposed to taking up a lot of committee time.
Are there any other commissioners who wish to speak on the consent calendar? Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Harris. We're doing something new now. We're not going to do roll call votes anymore. It's been an update from the clerk, so we'll just signify all together by saying aye, and then afterwards I'll ask for no's, any abstain. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? All right, the motion passes, and we saved about 30 seconds, so that's great. We're now going to proceed on to the discussion calendar. Item 3 is the Vision Zero Action Plan Update 2026 Review and Comment. Is there a staff presentation? Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Jennifer Donlin Wyant, Division Manager for Mobility and Sustainability. Very happy to be with you this evening. I'm here to talk about the work that we're doing on our Vision Zero Action Plan update. We are in the midst of our public engagement phase to gather input on the high injury network and on the draft actions. I'm going to apologize in advance for my presentation. We had to submit it about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and we've had a lot of learning since then on how to best communicate what is included in the presentation. And now we're down to about 12 slides. I gave a presentation to 2 high schools over the last 2 days, and it was much more succinct. So I'm going to highlight as I go through my presentation this evening, and happy to take questions and comments. So I'm going to go over where we are with Vision Zero and what it is, for those of you who are not engaged in that, give you an update on what we're doing with the Vision Zero Action Plan update, the project schedule, and how we can gather your input and how we hope folks stay involved. So what is Vision Zero for those of you who are not super engaged in everything that we do at the City of Sacramento? Vision Zero is a program and a commitment by the City of Sacramento to invest in reducing traffic fatalities and serious injuries. That is our focus, and we look at infrastructure, we look at community engagement, and we look at working with our communities to create a safer transportation network within the city. In 2018, the City Council adopted the Vision Zero Action Plan, our very first, one of the first in the nation, and our first for the City of Sacramento. And as part of that commitment, the city committed to achieving zero traffic fatalities by 2027, which is next year. We have not reached that goal. And as part of this process, we are evaluating what we have been successful at, where we have room for improvement, and how we should move forward. So the 2018 plan established a couple of things. It established that we know that speed is a significant factor in traffic fatalities and serious injuries. The greater the speed, as you see in this graphic here, of somebody who is driving, the greater likely for fatality for a pedestrian or a bicyclist on our roadways. 2/3 of our fatal crashes occur on streets with posted speed limits of greater than 40 miles per hour, which account for only 10% of our street network. And what we also did is we broke up the types of crashes into profiles. We can understand the systemic issues that are happening in the city and how we can work proactively to address these serious injuries and fatalities. And so we grouped our action plan in 2018 into developing a program, how we design our streets, addressing behaviors, how we provide access to key destinations because we see crashes near schools, near transit stops, and how do we improve safety for vulnerable road users. We also identified with the high injury network, and back in 2018, we identified that purely through crash data, and we're able to do it a little bit differently now, which I'll go into in a little bit. So since 2018, we have made progress. So we adopted, of course, the Transportation Priorities Plan, which I know you're all super in the loop on. We did a Vision Zero school safety study, and in fact got a number of schools funded through a federal earmark from Congressperson Matsui. We developed the Northgate Boulevard Plan and working forward on moving that into the next step where we received money not only for the plan, but to start preliminary engineering. We also are working to address the top 10 corridors in the city. Vision Zero Broadway, which is between MLK and Stockton, it's in design and estimated construction this year. Our North 12th Street roadway was actually already in progress, and so we've already done that lane reduction and put in the bikeway. Marysville Boulevard, we developed a plan and are moving forward with two efforts, a quick build effort of the corridor, and are looking to get funding for the full build out, but it is in design. Stockton Boulevard has two of our top 10 corridors, and we did a preliminary plan and advanced it as part of our other bigger effort called the Stockton STEP Project, which is a Safety and Transit Enhancement Project. A lot of people know that as the BRT project, but it's actually much bigger than Bus Rapid Transit. It is a safety project. Arden Way, we won a competitive grant to do planning work, which Chris talked about a little bit earlier. Again, it's one of our top 10. Howe Avenue, again, one of our top 10, and you may know, we've been bringing this to you. Charisse Padilla on our team she's working towards completing the planning effort for that. We hope to go to council on February 24th for their approval. And of course, Northgate, I already mentioned, is one of the top 10. So we're working to address those systemic corridors in the top 10 to improve the roadway to get to better behavior and reduce number of serious injuries and fatalities. So what do we have going on now? We have a lot. So our partners in traffic engineering are working on implementing Assembly Bill 43, which allows us to lower speed limits under certain circumstances, moving through that. We had on pause, but Chris has come on board and we're really excited to kick off again our street design standards update. Our traffic engineering team is moving forward with the tactical action group, and we will be actually kicking off a lot in the next couple of weeks on that, so look forward for more information on that. We've published our crash dashboard so you can see our crash data. And we're working on implementing daylighting as part of AB 413, Assembly Bill 413. And if you haven't been to our website in a while, we have what we call a CIP dashboard. CIP says Capital Improvement Project. This is not only capital projects, but if you go to our transportation planning website, there's a link. And on that, you can see this map. And this is all the efforts that we currently have engaged and happening in the city. And if you click on one of the lines, it'll pop up and give you some more information on that project. Nationally, crash trends have been trending up. I don't think that that's a surprise to all of you who are engaged in this work. So we not only look at what's happening in the city of Sacramento, but we also look at national trends. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because the presentation is a little bit too long. I would have shortened it had I known more, but I'm moving through it. In Sacramento, we are tracking that crash data, and I know that many of you are as well. And so we can see the number of total collisions and the number of KSIs are increasing, and they were fluctuating, and they really increased in the beginning of the pandemic. The top factors for crashes in the city, not a big surprise, driving at unsafe speeds is one of the bigger ones, improper turning, traffic signals and markings, not following the rules of the road, basically, driving while impaired. And so these are the types of things we look at as we're looking at what can we do. So what will this action plan update actually do? Jennifer, what are we doing here? One, we want to update the crash data. So we're looking at 10 years of crash data, 2013 through 2024, because that's what we have the complete data set for. We want to do a lot of community engagement, which I've been doing over the last couple of weeks. I did 8 community meetings in the last 2 weeks. So we've been to a lot of places. We hosted a virtual workshop. We hosted an in-person workshop. And then we've been taking it on the road show. So today I was at Valley High School. Yesterday I was at Grant Union High School. I'm going to be at Resources for Independent Living. I'm meeting with SAC Moves. We're just meeting with a lot of folks to make sure that people are aware of what we're doing and to gather their input. One of the other reasons why we're doing this is we want to meet state and federal standards. Our current Vision Zero action plan is not compliant for the federal Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program. We're out of compliance, so we want to update for that. And we want to implement what is called through AB 43, the safety corridors as part of our high injury network. So we're updating that as well. And last but not least, we want to make sure we have implementable recommendations, things that the city can do and will have a real outcome. For example, one of the actions in the old plan was to lower the blood alcohol level content for driving impaired. As a state level effort, it's a laudable action, but it's not something within the city's purview to really manage. So really looking at things that we can do and have a good impact to our communities. So we're about 2/3 of the way through the project schedule. You have a member, Vice Chair Gibson is on our task force, and we've been working with our task force to, and Commissioner Banks is as well in a different capacity, not through the commission. And we've been working through our data analysis and then countermeasures for those key factors. And now we're at this point where we're saying, okay, we have an understanding of the data. We want to develop the high injury network, and we want the action. So that's where we're at right now with our big engagement phase we're at right now. So there are two things we're asking folks: to develop the high injury network. And traditionally, it's just been the streets with the highest number of and frequency of crashes. What we want to do now, under AB 43, we are allowed to consider other factors. We're allowed to consider crashes involving people walking or people bicycling, crashes involving youth, or crashes involving older adults. And so we're asking folks in our communities, and I want to hear from you this evening, are those things that you'd like us to consider as priority? We also can consider sensitive areas, so crashes that happen near schools. Should we consider that in developing the high injury network? Additionally, we can consider crashes that happen in disadvantaged communities. And it could be one, it could be all five. Really what we're trying to do is get a feel from our communities and from our commission. What are your values and how would you like us to develop the high injury network? And the high injury network, just to recap why it's important, that's where investment goes. It's part of the Transportation Priorities Plan. It's part of how we evaluate our bigger project investment, but it's also part of how we evaluate our smaller investments. And so we want to hear from you about how we should develop this network. So these are the key questions. I went over this a little bit today. After my presentation, I'd love to hear from any members of the public or from the commission, your thoughts. And then the draft actions. The actions take the high injury network, we have it, but what are staff going to do about it? Are we going to strive for 10 intersection improvements over the lifetime of the plan, which is about 5 years? Are we going to try to look at automated red light enforcement? Continue to try to prioritize speed camera enforcement as part of the work to do. So the actions that staff will do. We have grouped them into buckets of priority, and the buckets of priority are based on 3 factors. 1, how expensive is it? Because we have to be real, we don't have a lot of money, or money's hard to get. So what are some things that we can do quickly that are relatively inexpensive to move forward? So that's 1. 2, does it require partnerships? Partnerships are wonderful, but they also take time and a lot of resources. And sometimes we need to figure out whether or not that partnership, can we prioritize that a little bit lower because we know it's going to take 2 to 3 years to move that forward. So partnerships are great, but also can be challenging for timelines. And then last but not least, how effective is the measure at actually reducing crashes? So there are things like education campaigns, which are great things, but data shows they're not super effective at getting to what we'd like to do. So that's how we prioritize them, which is right here. Sorry, next slide. So those are the things that we looked at. What we're looking at is 12 high priority, 14 medium priority, and 5 low priority actions. And they're grouped into new things, modifying what we're doing or new programs, implementing street changes, education, advocacy for legislation, and new data. So I have the top 10 here. I also want to share that the full 31 draft actions are available on visionzerosac.org. This was developed early on in the process, and the language might not be exactly as what we have on our website, but it's keeping our Vision Zero safety projects high on the top of the city's project list of things we're moving forward. Identify areas where speed limits can be lowered, and that's specifically through AB 43, where can we lower speed limits. Similarly, through Assembly Bill 43, where can we identify speed limits of 20 miles per hour as per state law in a business activity district. Another item is super wonky. We have this process called a project report, which is after it leaves planning and it goes to engineering, they go through their fabulous process of evaluating the project. We want to make sure that transportation safety is centered in that work. Number 5, completing sidewalk gaps as prioritized in the Streets for People plan. Number 6, continue efforts to prioritize the top 10 corridors for investment, focusing on grants to get the money to improve those projects and areas of persistent poverty. Number 7, build projects at intersections to improve safety, particularly when we have conflicts between people walking, people driving, or just people driving, looking at intersection improvements. Update our street design standards. Again, that's something that we've been working on for a number of years and really focusing safety on that. Number 9, super wonky, but I think you all will appreciate this. Update our traffic signal operation guidelines with proven safety tools. And number 10, identify how lighting and landscaping can be funded so that all parts of the city, one, can get lighting and how we can maintain landscaping. So those are the key questions that I have for folks. Again, looking at how we develop the high injury network and what are the values on those 5 items. And then of our draft actions, how do you feel about them, the actions? Are we missing any actions that you'd like to see? Do you think some should be higher priority than others? So with that, thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much. Now is the time in our agenda where we listen to members of the public who may wish to speak. Clerk, are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this item tonight?
Thank you, Chair. I have one member that would like to speak. Will Dan Ellison please come to the podium?
Good evening, Commissioners. Glad to see you, both old ones and new ones. My comments relate to some of the items that are in the full chart of potential actions. So I will say what the 2 are that I want to talk about. Number 7 on that list, not on the list that you just saw, relates to intersections and modifying intersections to reduce crashes. And I think that intersections are actually as important, perhaps more important than corridors. The 2018 plan focused on corridors and sometimes included dangerous intersections, but there are dangerous intersections throughout the city that should be addressed. And so I'm glad to see a focus on intersections and looking forward to the detail that will come up for that item. The other one is number 12, which is the Tactical Action Group Quick Build Projects. I think that they are the most effective short-term solution to the problems we face of traffic violence. It's something we can do in short order, sometimes the next day, sometimes the next week, sometimes the next month. But they are things that we can do without waiting long-term for budget or grants, and I think they're very important. Overall, I very much appreciate the direction that the Vision Zero thing is going. I like the buckets that things have been placed into and the approach that's been taken and the background information that's been developed by consultants and by staff. So I think it's going in a good direction, and I look forward to more detail. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Chair. That's all the speakers.
Thank you. So Commissioners, if you wish to speak on this item, please look at your screen, click the Request to Speak button, and we will call you in the order received. So any Commissioners who wish to speak on this item? Commissioners, is it Commissioner Banks? Yes, thank you, Commissioner Banks.
I just want to start by welcoming.
Yes.
So,
and we'll give you some
take it away.
time a little bit later to introduce yourself fully. We're happy to have you here.
I've had long conversations with you about Vision Zero, and the one thing I think that I'm missing that would help me is the intersection between all of the data that you presented, where the issues are happening, and then the list and the draft set of implementable buckets from low, medium to high. I'd love to see that cross-referenced, because I can't say, and I haven't looked at it since our last meeting, which is just a few days ago, where we ranked and looked and walked through all of those different possible implementable options. And I wasn't thinking about how could this help offset this issue. that we have. And if there was some data analysis done around that, I think it'd be really helpful to everybody. That makes sense?
I think so, yeah. Thanks, Deb. Commissioner.
Commissioner Harris.
Would it be possible to pull up the map of the items, the different
Oh.
phases that everything's in?
Let's see if I can go back.
It was very near the beginning, unfortunately.
Okay. With my very long presentation. Wait, how far back do you want?
Oh, that was it.
Oh. This one?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
So representing District 2, we have the most high injury networks, as I understand it. Don't have a statistic here, but my eyes tell me we have the most miles as well, and we seem to have the most miles in the first planning phase. Could you talk about how that comes to be? Is that an issue of that it is just too much money to ask for, and so we keep getting stuck waiting to get the funding? It just seems like there's a lot more red and a lot less blue.
Yeah. So Commissioner Harris, thank you. The way that planning, the way that transportation works, is you go from planning, you go to essentially preliminary engineering, final design, and then construction. So those are the big groups of work that we do. And why does North Sacramento have more work in planning than in other phases, is I think your question.
And less done, despite having
Yeah.
more work to do, yeah.
I can't speak for what happened before my time at the city, but what I can say is that the way that we're trying, we developed the Transportation Priorities Plan to help address equity in our transportation investments. And so that's why we see more planning in North Sacramento at this point, because the Transportation Priorities Plan prioritized investment in North Sacramento because high injury network lacks basic transportation infrastructure, and it hits all those key things. So that's why we are now moving the ship, turning the ship towards a more holistic approach of how we invest in transportation. So because we're just starting that and transportation funding is slow, that is why we are just working on, those projects in North Sacramento, which will then be moving from planning to my partners in engineering, who will be doing the preliminary design, seeking money for all that, but generally it's 8 to 20 years, which is why I think our communities are asking for quicker implementation.
So my comment would be, as we are considering changing the criteria, I would love to see how that affects some of these long-term plans and these areas that are historically disadvantaged from having the rules changed in this very long process that might undermine those improvements that take decades have been promised, and always seem to be a little bit too hard to get done. And I know the city does work hard on these things. I'm not making an accusation that it's intentional, but I would want any new criteria to not inadvertently change the rules going after lower hanging fruit when we have systemic, larger problems that really do require addressing. And if we decide to move to an intersection approach, I would want to know, for instance, one of the things, I would want to know how, that might be right, it might be even better for North Sacramento and the challenges we have there, but I would like to see additional information to ensure that we're not always focusing on the implementable, easy solutions and avoiding the harder work that is ahead of us.
Commissioner Harris, I absolutely hear you, and the set of recommendations, the 31 actions, includes both intersections and corridors that have already been defined. And so if one of the questions I'm asking the commission tonight is, how do we define the high injury network? Some of the criteria includes prioritizing investment in disadvantaged communities, for which North Sacramento is almost entirely a disadvantaged community. So that if I heard from you, for example, that's a value you want uplifted, that is one way that you can ensure that North Sacramento continues to be a priority. But this project doesn't change the Transportation Priorities Plan. And I expect that only the network would expand from what it is now, the high injury network, which is an input to how we prioritize all of our 700 projects that are $5 billion worth of investment.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Commissioner Moore.
Hello, and thank you for the presentation. The speakers seem to really be on tonight. Okay. You showed the PCF factor, that vehicle, pedestrian PCFs were, I think, the number one. But I know that that's kind of the catch-all PCF category in there. There's not any kind of subcategories of pedestrian-involved collisions. Are you all looking at analysis that is only vehicle pedestrian to see what some of the contributing factors are beyond that to how those crashes are taking place with pedestrians and vehicles?
Commissioner Moore, do you want to define PCF for everybody?
The primary collision factor.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So at this level, we are not. At this level, we're not breaking it up. But let's say that Rio Linda makes one of the top 10, just throwing it out there because we're talking about North Sacramento. Once we get into looking at what's happening on Rio Linda, then we will look in more greater detail on specifically what type of crashes are happening, and then what are those specific countermeasures that we would apply to that specific corridor or intersection. Could be just an intersection. It could be, Northgate at El Camino, right? And then we would look at the specific details there.
Do we run the risk of missing citywide trends that could be addressed elsewhere outside of waiting for one corridor to be identified and then evaluating that as a subset?
Told you to ask me hard questions, didn't I?
I was going to just sit back and let you go, but you provoked me.
I think it's as good as the data we have to be able to look at this level at a citywide level. A lot of it is corridor specific about the factors that are happening, but it is really the issues are unsafe speed, drivers not following signs and other directions that they should be getting. And I would probably add, the limited pedestrian or walking infrastructure that we have at the city at the locations where people want to cross, which is why we're looking at those corridors. Where are people crossing? Can we provide that infrastructure? Can we provide them better guidance?
Got it. Okay, thank you. That's question one. I did not see the ubiquitous graphic of all crashes versus KSI only, which typically, and I have no doubt shows here, bike and peds generally are disproportionately represented in that. So I guess I'm curious at the question of including vulnerable road users and why we just wouldn't automatically, assuming that is they are more represented in the...
Absolutely. So people walking and biking are disproportionately represented in our KSIs. And because I don't make the decisions, I want to hear from our communities. So do our communities want to prioritize people walking and biking? Is this something that's really key? And so absolutely, it's in the reports on our website. It's part of the key information that we have, and I can say that we have heard loud and clear from almost every meeting that I've had that our communities want us to prioritize vulnerable road users, specifically people walking and biking.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. Yeah, just voicing that. I echo and had the question around, in addition to vulnerable road users, can we include disadvantaged community and other equity metrics? And it sounds like we can. It wasn't just limited to those. Okay, echoing support for that as well. Have we looked at improvements along corridors that have been implemented since the 2017 plan? And seeing if crashes are going down or if we are still seeing trends that maybe are or are not as effective so we don't duplicate efforts. And maybe it's part of a more systemic issue that one improvement isn't going to address, but have we looked at improvements since then and how trends are looking?
Part of the challenge we have with that is that since the plan was actually 2018, then it takes us a while to implement transportation investments. And then we had the pandemic in for which things just got a little wonky and trends went up for KSIs. And so I think we would need a little bit more time to adequately evaluate the effectiveness of the measures, but we typically implement measures that have been shown nationally to reduce crashes, particularly severe injuries and fatalities.
Okay. Lowering speed limits, love it. Of course, we wouldn't need to if people were not just by roadway design going to abide by the speed limit. I'm sure you've been asked, but are we going to accompany lowering the speed limit with any engineering contributions to that effort at the same time prioritized so that people actually abide by the lowered speed limit?
This item here is only to lower speed limits, and it's basically in accordance with Assembly Bill 43 that allows us to lower speed limits. Generally, other tools, physical infrastructure to lower driving speeds requires greater financial resources than the city has. So we are moving through our projects that we have, and many of our goals are reduce speeds, and we're doing lane reductions and other measures to reduce those speeds. But for this effort, it really is following AB 43 and reducing those speed limits without any other tools.
Okay. And we'll be doing, I think Chair Gonzalez had mentioned this at a previous meeting. Will there be any kind of contribution to the new signage that really alerts drivers to the lowered speed limit beyond just replacing the numbers? Because I don't look at speed limit signs very often, and if we are changing the speed limit signs, it's very likely that people won't even notice and continue driving at their speed. So if there's anything we can do to enhance the visibility of those reduced speed limits, I would echo the recommendation that was previously made. And that might be it, but let me just double check. Echo the comment around intersections. It sounds like you are including that, but I know that when we're doing corridor studies and plans, those are the hardest part to get those really great improvements to carry through, because you have, you have 4 lanes of traffic or approaches all coming into one. So I just echo the importance of carrying all of those protections through there, despite the decrease in LOS, level of service. And I think that's all the questions I have for now. Thank you.
Commissioner Risho Patel.
Hi. I just have a question about draft action number 7 and the high injury network in general. How are we defining serious injuries, and what data sets are we using?
All data sets come from our police department through the Crossroads database, which is Form 555 from CHP, so it's consistent across California. Okay. And the officers identify the severity of the crash at that time.
What are the different categories of severity? Is there a 5-point scale, a 3-point scale? What does it look like?
I don't know. That would be a question for the police department. They collect that data. Yeah, you're welcome.
Commissioner Tao.
Thank you, Chair Gonzalez, and thank you, Ms. Wyatt and city staff, for all of the work that you all are doing. Very much appreciated, and thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to express my support for the view on equity as we develop this high injury network. I do share similar concerns with Commissioner Harris, since my area is South Sacramento, and I just want to make sure that the criteria is, or maybe perhaps get a better understanding of how the current criteria is or is not identifying certain needs within South Sacramento. I was also wondering, in terms of the total incidents, whether we can view that in comparison to the percentage of people who are using sidewalks or biking in certain areas, to get a better view of the percentage between users and perhaps some streets that might not necessarily have folks who are on bikes or are walking, just because the roads itself is dangerous. But when you look at the number of folks who are using that roads and compare it to the number of incidents that are happening, perhaps that could also paint a picture of how safe those roads are. So just trying to get understanding of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tao. So South Sacramento might not come out very vibrant on this map of our current projects, but these are just more of our larger, significant infrastructure projects. We also have a lot of smaller projects that are happening that we have not yet integrated to our project map. We're working through that, hopefully to have up there soon. Like, I know we've been doing a lot of work at Meadowview and Amherst, for example, down in South Sac. So that's that, and I think that I'm hearing from you that as part of the values for how we develop the high injury network, prioritizing our disadvantaged communities is something that you're interested in. Awesome. And then your other question was about basically rates of use for people walking and biking, and can we consider that in how we evaluate our corridors? Unfortunately, we don't have great data on that. We have some data. We have some data from our scooters, because the scooter companies are required to give us data, but as most of you know, that's predominantly in the core of the city, and so we can look at that activity. Other than that, we could rent a counter and install it on a sidewalk, but it's kind of like this hodgepodge of doing the counts. There's also a potential of buying big data. So all of our phones, you can buy anonymized data, and you can estimate how people travel by their speeds for walking, biking, or driving. That data also is pretty expensive, but it is on our wish list of looking at how we can get big data to really better understand our activity levels throughout the city and what they currently are and where we want them to be. So we took a peek at big data as part of developing the Streets for People plan. And one of the key, and as well as part of our transportation demand management ordinance update, which you'll see soon. And we saw in North Sacramento, between Del Paso Heights and Hagenwood, the choose travel pattern over to Natomas. Not surprising, right? Because in Natomas, there's more shopping, there's more jobs, there's activity over there. But there's not a lot of great connection between those communities. So that helps inform planners like us, okay, what infrastructure, or what services are needed to support these communities who are traveling between the two. So on our wish list, big data. Hope to have it soon. We'll see.
Vice Chair Gibson, please.
Thank you. A couple questions, but just first to follow up on the part about big data. What kind of price point for that big data are you guys looking at?
I was quoted $80,000 a year for just a dip in it, which we don't have, obviously. But SACOG has access to data. It's a process to get through. SACOG, or Sacramento Area Council of Governments, which is our regional planning organization for the 6-county area around Sacramento. But it's close, but not exactly what we're looking for. But we're looking at it.
Okay, thank you. On my, trying to think for my initial comments, just kidding. So I want to first say for priorities, the tactile action group, to echo the public commenter a moment ago, when we want to say we're responding to an incident within the community, this is within our toolbox to do now, as opposed to one of our corridor plans. Speaking of corridors, Northgate Boulevard, I believe it's now almost 20 years since the first plans have been put together. And that is a very long time for a transportation improvement plan. So I would much rather see that as a priority to be higher on the list, because at the very least we can say, well, we did something, as opposed to we made a plan. And then within our traffic calming toolbox currently, speed lumps are one of our main interventions. I believe the funding is around $200,000. Is that?
Maybe a little bit more than that. It fluctuates by year.
Yeah, thank you. Are we looking to reevaluate that program? Because when I last looked into it, there was, I don't want to get the number wrong, but a significant amount of process hurdles and engineering hurdles to get that implementation. So that's already a bucket of funding we have. So are we looking at reevaluating that program?
That's managed by our partners in traffic engineering. I have heard it is on their wish list to look at. And a part of our biggest challenge in moving things forward is staff capacity. We just don't have enough staff to do everything that we'd like to do. So it's on the list, but I can't promise that anyone will get to it in the next 6 months to a year.
I recommend that for consideration to reevaluate the program. Just within my experience of seeing how that program is implemented, some of the process requirements means we get less interventions in our communities. So some of those processes, I feel very strongly should be removed. So thank you.
Commissioner Wadawali.
Thanks for the presentation. In terms of giving a little bit of feedback, first, if it's time to jump in on that, in the two questions you asked about first prioritizing vulnerable users, absolutely. I was actually, when I looked at the presentation for the first time earlier today, I hadn't realized that we weren't prioritizing vulnerable users, and I think that makes perfect sense, and it should be done, so full support for that. And same for sensitive areas like schools, disadvantaged communities. I'm a strong believer that we're trying to raise, in terms of schools, the pedestrians and bicyclists that we're putting out there, and if they don't feel safe, we really need to fix that issue. Support all 10 of the projects that you mentioned, but I wanted to put in a special plug for both the reduction in speed limits, which we've heard from several of the commissioners, as well as the traffic signals and giving pedestrians things like a head start, bicyclists better signals. So, but I support all of it.
Thank you.
Just to echo a couple of the comments from tonight's commissioners, I just want to echo the comments about the speed lowering. Recommendation 2 and 3 in particular seem to be really focused on that, and glad to see that. And because so many great things were already said, I don't want to repeat it. I do want to point to recommendation 22, develop and release a press release or similar and encourage media professionals to improve on how they report traffic crashes and roadway safety. I think this is a phenomenal recommendation because how we think about these incidents that we live in our daily life, the carnage that is happening all around us almost on a daily basis, and how it's so downplayed in the media, normalizing it, making us immune to really the preventable tragedies we see every day. I point it out too because I think this is probably one of the only recommendations on here that you can do in conjunction with organizations. I think we have representation from at least 3 of those organizations here tonight who would probably help you do it for free. A lot of these things obviously have a lot of barriers involved in them that would cost a lot of money and time and staff to implement. But I know that Civic Thread and SABA and Slow Down Sacramento would be happy to work together in tandem to implement this, basically on your behalf if it were asked properly and could, collaborate in that way. So let's do that because I think that helps us build a lot of momentum on our side from our public, who would then influence our electeds and then make these ideas into policy, into action. So hopefully we can do that. Oh, I see we have one more comment from Commissioner
sorry,
Rishabh Patel. Please, yes.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just had a quick question. So the key questions that you asked, is that an or? Like, do you want crashes involving vulnerable road users to be given greater priority in developing the HIN? Or do you want crashes occurring near schools or in disadvantaged communities to be given greater priority? Is this like a values question or?
It's all the above. So do you want all of them? Yes. Or do you want 2 of them? Let me know which 2. So it can be people walking, people biking, youth, or older adults, sensitive areas like schools, and or disadvantaged communities. It can be all of them or only some of them.
Okay. Oh, okay. I guess from my point of view, just off the dome, I would like to see us prioritizing cyclists and pedestrians. I think everybody is a pedestrian at some point. You get out of your car, you're a pedestrian. I'd like to see us focusing our efforts in schools, destinations like hospitals, especially as we are developing many new parts of our city. There's a lot of infill happening not too far from here. That's expected to attract a lot of, road users of all kinds. And hopefully, with that density of destinations, we'll see less car use in this area. So I'd like to focus on that. And thank you.
The Active Transportation Commission is an advisory body. We have no power to make any kind of policy or legislation unilaterally. However, the comments that you all provide tonight hopefully will go into your consideration as you draft the final plan update. Tonight, this item is receiving comments, so no vote required. And we'll move on to the next item. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next item is number 4, the H Street Bikeways review and comment. Is there a staff presentation tonight?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Cecilyn Foote, and I'm with the Department of Public Works. With the clicker. I'm the project manager for the H Street Bikeway project, and I'm here with another member of our project design team. This is Chris Brazil. He's with our consultant, Sumis. We appreciate the opportunity to tell you more about this project. The H Street Bikeway project is part of a larger package of projects that will improve the area around the Sacramento Valley Station. The city received grant funds to construct a 2-way Class 4 separated bikeway between 5th Street and 10th Street to improve safety and connectivity to the Sacramento Valley Station from downtown and the neighboring and the neighborhoods to the east. And we're also providing a connection on 10th Street between H Street and J Street. H Street and I Street, sorry. The new facility will provide a connection to some of the newer bike facilities on 9th Street and 10th Street, as well as on 5th Street, which was done last year. So this project is requiring a lot of coordination with many stakeholders. Some of the major ones along the project limits are the new county courthouse, federal courthouse, the county jail, and administration building, as well as City Hall right here. And actually, one of the main coordinating agencies is Sacramento Regional Transit, as they have a light rail double tracking project going on right within our project limits. And I'll hand it over to Chris to talk about each block.
Good evening, everyone. All right, so our project. So between 5th and 6th Street, in the existing condition, there's 2 eastbound lanes, as well as a Class 2 bike lane on the south side. There is no street parking here through this block, and there's currently a single light rail track at the north. With the proposed project, we will be reducing down to a single eastbound lane with a 2-way bikeway on the south that you can see there, which will be separated by a mountable curb. There will be a buffer between the newly installed double track light rail system, and you can see that there with the yellow hatching. It's about 7 feet wide. Here you can see some graphical representations with the existing photo, as well as a markup through, sorry, I forget the program. Anyways, it shows on the proposed. And you can see the 2 light rail trains with the buffer, a single lane, and then as well the two-way bikeway. New terminology, sorry, I gotta fight through that. Here between 6th and 7th Street, again, 2 eastbound lanes with a bike lane on the south. There's no parking here either. As we move with the proposed project, there will be 2 lanes. One will be dedicated to a through lane. One will be a dedicated right turn only. You can see there's a merge point there on the west. The bikeway again will be on the south with 2 lanes opposing. And there will be it will be buffered with delineators or the K71 bollards, similar to what was done on the 12th Street project. Here's, again, the pictures of the existing condition and the graphic representing the proposed. Between 7th and 8th Street, I can get my streets right, we have 2 eastbound lanes, and there's a Class 3 bike right here, which means that it's sharing the lane. There's no dedicated bike lane. And that is due to the parking that is on the south side there. You can see some parked cars in the graphic. The proposed condition will maintain parking, but it will be separating the travel lane from the bikeway, as you can see there. And I believe we are going to be eliminating a very small amount of parking in this street. It should be of note that this is where there's going to just be a single track here. So the double tracking drops off at 7th Street. I forgot to mention that. So this is just the existing train that runs in current state that's separated from the main road. So again, here's the pictures of the existing proposed. Between 8th and 9th Street, the existing condition is 2 eastbound lanes with 2 Class 2 bike lanes, 1 in each direction, south and north side of the road. There is existing parking here in front of the county building and the tax board. The proposed condition, we will be reducing down to just a single eastbound lane, and we will be maintaining parking on both sides of the street. There will be a dedicated right turn pocket approaching 9th Street, and this area will have the bikeway separated by a large buffer, 3 foot wide minimum, with again, the delineators or K71 bollards. Here you can see the picture of the existing condition and our proposed condition with the parking, the 2 white cars on the outside and the single lane in the middle. Between 9th and 10th Street, again, we have 2 eastbound lanes with the 2 opposing bike lanes, east and west. There is parking and loading here, and this is in front of City Hall. Because we are in front of City Hall and the proposed condition, we did want to maintain parking, as well as provide 2 eastbound lanes to continue with that. We've also provided the same loading condition for vehicles entering in front of City Hall that you would see today by pushing out with extended curb returns. If I had a laser pointer, I could see, I could point to that. At this location, the bikeway is going to be pulled up onto the sidewalk. And so we will be, that's why we'll be pushing out the existing curb line. Here you can see the turnout area that I mentioned that will be maintained with the proposed project. And here is an example, it probably won't be the application we'll use, but here's an example of how the cycle track could be highlighted and separated from the roadway so that pedestrians walking by side can, identify that that's not a walk path. As we connect into 10th Street, we just take into consideration, again, the extended curb and kind of some of the geometry. So we'll be looking closely into how to integrate that and pull bike users from the north to be able to connect them into H Street and enter into the cycle track. On 10th Street between H and J, I thought that was I, yeah. Sorry, between H and I Street. Entering into City Hall, there is a parking garage, and so currently there's a left turn pocket that's dedicated for that action, and a through lane that heads northbound. This was deemed for consideration of dropping, and so in our proposed condition, I'm gonna skip that slide and go back to it. In our proposed condition here on the bottom picture, we were considering just a single northbound through lane with an opening that people can enter into the parking garage. On the east side of 10th Street, we propose a buffered bike lane with parking on the outside of that to maintain its existing configuration. I believe the bicycle buffer is 3 feet in this location, 2 feet minimum for sure. And the intent is to protect the cyclist while still providing the parking on the east to maintain access for people on both the buildings on the west and east side of 10th Street. On the west side of 10th Street, we are maintaining a through lane, and this is a Sharrow location. There's motorcycle parking, which are all those little ticks there in the center, as well as a few parking stalls mimicking what's out there today. I'll go back to that picture, sorry. The reason that we wanted to incorporate the 10th Street inclusion is there's currently a gap in the Class 4 network, which is where that's circled. And so by introducing this connection, it should continue on and tie in nicely to that Class 4 network.
Right. So we have a public workshop scheduled for next week here at City Hall in the room by the H Street side of City Hall. So you're all welcome to attend. And our team is currently working on completing preliminary engineering by this spring and then starting into the final design, which will last about a year. So that's the end of our presentation. We're happy to receive any feedback that you have or to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Clerk, are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this item tonight?
Thank you, Chair. We have one speaker. Can I have Dan Ellison please come to the podium?
Good evening, Dan Allison again, resident of District 4. My comments on the bikeway, one is there's a mixed-use transit lane between 6th and 7th. It should not be there. It needs to be dedicated transit. Every problem on the light rail system is from mixed-use lanes. We should not be mixing motor vehicles, private motor vehicles, and transit vehicles, ever, anywhere. And we need to eliminate those, not create them. The bikeway must be a minimum of 10 feet wide throughout. It is as little as 8.9 feet in several places. 10 feet is a minimum. And it's particularly important because if we're to maintain it, we need a maintenance vehicle that can run down a consistent width bike lane without running into other objects. There must be bicycle signal faces at every one of the intersections. On the diagrams that were presented, they're only at 2 of the 5 intersections and not at the other 3. That could be an oversight, but it needs to be corrected. Where there are two general purpose lanes in one direction, as there are between 8th and 10th, they don't both need to be 11 feet. 11 feet for one of them would be fine. It's clear to me in looking at the plans that the priority was preserving parking. There's no reason for that. There's plenty of parking in that part of town. I'm not opposed to on-street parking, but where it's needed for other purposes, like wider bicycle facilities, parking should be eliminated. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Chair. I have no further speakers.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, if you wish to speak on this item, please press the request to speak button, and we'll call you up in the order received. Commissioner Risho Patel.
I have a few prepared.
Unmute yourself.
I want to start by saying how glad I am to see that we're pursuing protected bike lanes in this area and investing in stronger connections to transit, particularly the Sacramento Valley Station. I think that's very important. It's absolutely critical for the long-term success of this part of the city and for the people who are going to who live, work, and travel to this part of the city. I also want to widen the lens a little bit. This corridor is not just about train access. I know that that's part of the program that's funding this. But we know that this corridor sits adjacent to the Sacramento Valley Station and major destinations and potentially very transformative developments, particularly the rail yards. It's bringing in thousands of new residents, retail, mixed-use spaces, a hospital, a soccer stadium, and a new park space. This area is expected to become very vibrant and full of people. People who are walking, biking, taking transit, gathering, and ideally not relying on driving for every trip. We also have to acknowledge that in this area, this part of downtown has historically not been very accessible and safe for people using cars, outside of cars. I want to talk about, in 2022, the Yolo Solano Air Quality Management District Executive Director, Matt Earhart, was struck by a motor vehicle while riding his bicycle at IN 7th Street, and he later died from his injuries. He passed away after the crash and not at the scene, so that means that this collision was recorded in the TIMS database as a level 3 injury. For everyone's reference, level 1 is considered fatal, level 2 is suspected serious, level 3 is suspected minor or visible injury, level 4 is possible injury or complaint of pain, and 0 is no injury or property damage only. In this case, this man lost his life. So this highlights, I think, a long-standing limitation in how crash data is classified and used. The city relies on high injury network, so this relates to some of my comments from earlier, to prioritize our interventions. And so I think that approach is important and necessary, but there are fatal outcomes that are not captured as fatalities in the data set. So as we move forward with the H Street Bikeways Plan and station connections, including what staff presented today, and beyond what staff presented today, the work that we're doing with Vision Zero, I urge the city and people to consider both the data and the lived reality of what we're looking at here. So all that said, I'm glad to see these improvements coming, and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Commissioner. Commissioner Moore.
Thank you for the presentation. I want to begin by echoing all of Dan's comments. I think that he made some really astute points in that, and I second all of those. I did have some questions around the bikeway width. Would absolutely wholeheartedly agree they need to be at least a minimum of 10 feet. Just 8 feet or anything under that with two people passing each other is not a lot of room when you're traveling at speed with two bicycles, especially with the prevalence of e-bikes. So a minimum 10 feet. Agree with the sentiment of the parking. I think in particular, the first one that caught my eye was between 7th and 8th. There were a series of parkings and then a gap. And I think there were 2 parking spaces before a gap before we approach 8th Street. It's also right where we approach the tracks, and we have that kind of angled alignment, which I appreciate that, but I would just recommend getting rid of those two easternmost spaces. The amount of time a driver has to see past those for a cyclist to be coming, the cyclist is not going to be paying attention to that because they have to worry about the track. It's just too much going on, and even the daylighting space that we currently have is just not enough time for drivers to comprehend that there's a bicyclist coming every time. Those are usually like the closest calls I feel like that I have is when on those turns when there's not enough space. So eliminating those two, yeah, the bike lanes on 10th Street. Is there a reason we are putting, I guess I'm concerned that we have the buffer between the travel lanes, great, but that door zone is gonna get somebody at some point, almost guarantee it. So can we shift parking to the outside and then buffer and then bike lane, or split the buffer between, can we get some protection between the bike lane using space and the parked cars?
Yes, so we have, thank you, Commissioner. We have looked into a couple different options at that location. We've assessed, protected parking, protected bike lanes, buffered bike lanes, and to include even potentially lifting it up onto the sidewalk there adjacent to the building. So I think we could look into various options if that is a high concern.
Did you say you had looked into options, or you?
We have.
Okay,
yes.
Can I ask why this one made the presentation?
This was the option that was selected to move forward with based off of discussions held with the city from our end.
Okay, I guess can I ask why was this one selected? Like, why didn't we go with the safer options is ultimately what I'm trying to understand.
We're still open. We're still open to looking at both, so.
Okay. Yeah, would love to see, especially across from City Hall. I think it would show great leadership if City Hall gave up that parking space to allow it to be parking protected. I'll put it on the record. I think in just overall comment for presentations like these that rely so heavy on cross sections, would just love to see widths of things. It would just help, I think, everybody who can see them understand what they're looking at. But overall, thank you. I appreciate it and looking forward to the project.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Wawali?
Thank you for the presentation. And I work in this area. I'm on foot very often. I bike a whole lot in this area, and I come down I Street or up 10th Street, and I get to that corner, and I feel completely unsafe proceeding beyond. So really, really appreciate the project. I did want to echo both Dan's and Commissioner Moore's comments about prioritizing pedestrians and bikes over the parking here. I think it is an area in which many, many people are not in their cars because there are parking garages surrounding the area. So something to take into consideration there, but appreciate the project very much.
Commissioner Banks?
+1 to what they just said, to pile on, let you all know that we really are concerned about that piece.
Yeah, we know parking is a sensitive topic, so we were trying to do our best to, to have a compromise, but we're still open to looking at changing the design.
Commissioner Rubenstein?
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I want to commend your efforts to balance both mobility and safety. I just want to put some focus, especially on the segment near City Hall. I want to keep in mind that we have a lot of peaceful demonstrations out here, a lot of civic activities and so on, and so we should prioritize safety, I think, the closer we are to City Hall, especially as people walk and bike towards those events and activities. Thank you.
Commissioner Harris?
A compromise potential, adding on to this, that I also know there's a lot of law enforcement in this area that does require often a vehicle to serve from. If these are areas that parking is identified for a safety purpose, I would suggest the compromise to make those areas dedicated as not parking, but some sort of hashed zone that we know law enforcement could take advantage of. I wouldn't want it to be a loading zone because we all know people just do whatever they want in loading zones. They have no rules, from what I can tell. But if there is a need for access, that be some sort of space that we know could be used for law enforcement, fire, responsiveness, security regarding some of the demonstrations that happen here. I think that's an important need, but also recognize there are other ways to maintain that space without making it a spot for general parking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Gibson.
All right, thank you. Echo many comments before, but one additional one. Although the street immediately next to City Hall would have a nice concrete barrier, it seems like the other interventions for that barrier are relatively small. Previous up, like, try to see the exact word listed, you know, some are just bollards and some are just a little bit of raised. You know, I assume they're less than a foot tall, the
Oh, mountable
rumble
curb.
strips.
Mountable curb or the?
Yeah, I would just want you all to consider higher level protection, some concrete, especially since if this is something we're going to really encourage using. Bollards don't really stop cars if somebody is distracted, especially if it's just 6 inches to a foot. A distracted driver who grabs their phone and twists would run right over something as opposed to hit a piece of concrete instead. So I would like that to be considered.
Understood, yeah. I don't know how this process works, but as far as the block between 5th and 6th Street with the mountable curb, the justification for that was for fire access. We discussed with the city fire and workshopped with them how they could get through the corridor with the reduction from 2 lanes to a single lane. And so the intent was that they could first use the buffer as a zone that they could enter if vehicles are to pull over onto the right side. However, in the event an errant vehicle goes to the left because they get confused or they don't know where to go, the intent was to allow the cycle track to then become the emergency access point and enter over that mountable curb. So that's why just in that very short segment, that's there.
First of all, thanks for clarifying for that specific segment, but there's also, like, I'm just looking back, the 8th Street to 9th Street, just again, for example of wherever, because in my experience, every location gets a chance once every 50 years. So as we're going through a Vision Zero process and trying to really elevate it, if this is our one chance, I would love to see a higher level of protection where it fits within the engineering. Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Can you return the slide plan view, 8th Street, 9th to 10th, just behind City Hall here to the screen, if you wouldn't mind? And I thank all the commissioners for their great comments, and obviously lots of enthusiasm. Some of it is from well use of the corridor, and some of it is from just excitement for this happening. Okay, so you said that you're going to be having a drop-in kind of town hall or workshop coming up, correct?
We'll wait for them tonight, yes.
Okay, and will that be advertised to City Hall employees as well and encouraged for them to attend as beyond the members of the public?
We can do that. I'll have to check with our city PI. I know they have some articles coming out, and there's some social media coming out, as well as we have flyers, so I'll double check on that.
I think some intentional outreach to City Hall employees actually might give you some really good insights on the use of the loading zone behind City Hall. Just my own personal experience as a neighborhood leader, I've run National Night Out events for many years. And, to pick up our packets, our boxes with all of our swag and all the materials, we're all instructed to come to this spot, right? So members of the community from all over the city driving here, wanting to pick up boxes quickly, rapidly. And I'm just thinking about all the points of conflict that we see here and just want to know what the actual lived experience is and what some recommendations from city staff might be on how we might mitigate that placement of the bike lane versus the loading zone and whatnot. I can't figure it out right now. And to speak again about the parking and the choices made on the street, I want to echo the comments about emergency vehicle parking only and the elimination of just on-street parking for those that are not, especially maybe on the side across the street from 8th Street, so we could get some more buffer, because what I see here in this lane right now, and unless you've already thought about ways to mitigate it, is the potential damage to the root structures of all those trees that align that street. So I don't know what kind of excavation will be required on the paving for this, and I don't know what kind of damage might be caused by the constant travel of bicycles over roots for this genus of tree, but I think that should really be taken into consideration before we go with this plan, and potentially the removal of those parkings on the other side of the street might allow us to shift everything up in a direction that doesn't damage those trees. Downtown is so, just blessed with beautiful tree canopies. And to lose any of that on City Hall in particular would be, I think, a really bad image for the city of trees, to lose a whole block side of trees. But keep that in mind. But I really do think feedback from City Hall employees would be really insightful for this block as to the real-life use experience of that loading zone, which is vital to so many. I think it's also a spot where people tend to park for voting when we have the ballot box here at City Hall. So, and there's a sign usually back there saying, you can vote inside here. Just thinking about those conflict points. But wonderful plan all around, and thank you so much for all the comments. Not seeing any other commissioners that wish to speak. Once again, this is not a thing to vote on tonight. It's just receiving comment only. We hope that you take these considerations here tonight and incorporate them into your next phase. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll move on now to the next item. The next item is member comments, ideas, and questions. This is not public comment yet or open matters, just member comment, ideas, and questions. Any commissioners here to wish to speak on that? All right. No? Oh, okay. Commissioner Hodel.
Thank you. There we go. Well, we only had 2 items on the agenda tonight. This might have been a great opportunity to get something off that commission log. So I think my big question is, has the commission log died? There are 6 items currently on the log, 3 of them from Commissioner Harris, 1 from Commissioner Wadhwani, 1 from Commissioner Banks, 1 from Commissioner Moore. I submitted 2 items on November 24th. They have yet to appear. So I'm just wondering, should the commission log go away, be revised, or should somebody move forward and start bringing these topics? This is the only way we have to bring topics to the commission for discussion. And so if it needs to function or go away.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments. I'm happy to re-engage the commission log a little more, especially now that we are staffing up. We have a little more capacity to address those items that are on the log. So I will make a note of that, and I will bring back the items that you had sent in so we can do it officially through the log entering process that we do through the commission in March.
And make a sincere effort to bring something to us.
Yes.
Okay.
I will say our March agenda has 4 items. It's already a very big agenda.
Oh, I know. I don't
We'll
think we should
definitely-
impact
Yeah.
that, but,
Okay.
you know.
Perhaps if nothing else, maybe just check in that it's in process, it maybe is scheduled for another month at every meeting. Even if we don't get into the meat and potatoes on it, might be just a nice courtesy to let us all know that they are being taken seriously. Commissioner Harris, please.
I wasn't going to talk about that, but I am a project manager, and I would love to see at the next March meeting an actual schedule for when those items will be addressed. It seems like a short item, and I know it might change, but if we don't ever make a plan, it just won't happen at all. So the ask is that our log is updated with a proposed date when we would hear on those items, and that we do hear about those on March. That wasn't what I was going to talk about, but.
Let me see what I can do on that. Our item, since our March ATC is a week earlier than normal, we are already doing our staff reports and all that information. Let me see what I can do this week to get that in.
All right, thank you. What I was going to talk about on my own, I have worked with Councilmember Dickinson's office, and we are doing a walking tour at, oh my gosh, I'm gonna just have like a whole brain fart here. Las Palmas and Del Paso Boulevard. We were requested to come out and address, as a community association, some of the longstanding safety issues we experience at that intersection. It is a constant place of injury, accidents, some of them quite severe. It is also part of the high injury network. It is also an area that has a crosswalk that is demarcated with one of those pesky red blinking lights that no one knows what to do with because they're not red-green and not a real intersection. I encourage anyone on this commission or members of the public to come join us. We'll be meeting Monday, March 2nd at 5:30 p.m. If you haven't made it out of the grid, I encourage you to come see how the rest of us walk. And I'm just going to keep bringing it up. I know it's my standard thing. These things, this 8th Street stuff is great. And boy, would it be great to get a functioning bike lane along the boulevard, Del Paso, Marysville. So just opening up, it's open to everyone and appreciative to city staff for coming on out after hours to meet with the community and address this area and talk about what can be done. Thank you.
Location of meeting.
Oh, Los Palmas and Del Paso Boulevard, right there at the intersection, right there in the intersection. Wear bright colors. People get hit there and die all the time. One of my things I like to do is to put city on staff where it's uncomfortable to be at the time people are there. So also invite commissioners to ask your council members to do the same thing for you. It's something you can do in your seat as you are. Ask for city staff to come out and put them on the ground in some of these really uncomfortable locations. It's my favorite thing to do. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice Chair Gibson.
Since our last meeting, there have been at least 2 reported fatalities of people walking in Sacramento. 68-year-old man on February 9th on the corner of Florin Perkins Road and Okinawa Road. That's near the Army Depot. And then in Commissioner Harris's district, a 22-year-old woman on February 12th, just a few days ago, on foot on El Camino Avenue and Empress Street. I actually did not see these reported in the local media, just reported via the county's motor vehicle incident report. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Risho Patel.
I have a few prepared statements today. I want to speak specifically about 24th Street in District 5. At last month's commissioners meeting, I asked staff about any upcoming projects related to safety improvements, transit access, and bike and pedestrian infrastructure along 24th Street. And what I noticed is that many of the highlighted projects effectively end at Sutterville Road or Fruit Ridge Road. But 24th Street does not end at Sutterville. South of Sutterville, 24th Street runs through Hollywood Park, Woodbine, Brentwood, and Meadowview, among other neighborhoods. This corridor serves residential neighborhoods, light industrial areas, and critically multiple SAC RT light rail stations. That's Fruit Ridge, 47th, Florin, and Meadowview. People use the street to access transit, get to work, go to school, get groceries, go home, and they deserve to do that safely. In the past several years alone, 24th Street and Fruit Ridge Road have seen several repeated fatal and life-threatening crashes. In October 2025, a 60-year-old pedestrian, Gerald Hall, was killed in a fatal hit-and-run near Florin and 24th Street in the middle of the night. In September 2025, a pedestrian died after being struck near 24th and 47th Avenue. In May 2025, a bicyclist sustained life-threatening injuries in a hit-and-run near 24th and Fruit Ridge. In June 2025, a woman was killed in a hit-and-run on Fruit Ridge near 24th. In 2021, Rogelio Ruiz died after being struck at 24th and Fruit Ridge. And this is what I could find on just the first and second page of my Google search. Looking deeper into Tim's data, you can find that from 2014 to 2025, there were 19 crashes on 24th and Fruit Ridge, 11 crashes on 24th and 47th, 74 crashes on 24th and Florin. So that's more than 100 crashes in 10 years. So what this means is that these are not isolated incidents. This is a corridor pattern. Despite posted speed limits of 35 miles an hour, vehicles frequently travel 50 to 60 miles per hour. And there are several gaps in the sidewalk network. Where there are sidewalks, they're often damaged and poorly maintained. There are limited safe marked crosswalks, and they're widely spaced. Lighting is inconsistent, and there are long stretches where pedestrians must navigate high-speed traffic with minimal protection. This corridor runs parallel to Franklin Boulevard, Freeport Boulevard, and Highway 99. It functions as a major north to south route, and it carries real volume. When we talk about equity and priority, we have to talk about geography. And if major safety investments consistently stop north of Sutterville, we are unintentionally signaling that some of these neighborhoods are more worthy of safe infrastructure than others. District 5 residents want the same things that residents everywhere want: to walk to the store safely, to bike to transit safely, to go to work and cross the street without fearing for their lives or their children's lives, and to get home safely no matter what time of the day. I would like to see more focused attention on 24th Street south of Sutterville, whether through corridor studies, traffic calming, protected bike infrastructure, enhanced crossings, or sidewalk infill and repair. This corridor deserves the same urgency and seriousness as any other high-injury corridor in our city, and we cannot accept recurring fatal and life-threatening crashes as normal. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And I'm coming over here, I'm hoping it's Commissioner Hamida. No? Oh, Banks. But after that, please, we are almost at the end of the meeting, and we hope you have a few minutes to introduce yourself as well. Commissioner Banks.
Sorry, stuck with me. Thank you, Commissioner Justine, for that. I feel your passion and your pain for the area of which you're speaking about. I am going to ask for something a little lighter, and that is around our trail system. There are some significant, small, little minor gaps in our trail system from the Del Rio Trail, Sac River Northern, et cetera. And I want our log to actually, well, I want to ask to put an update on our whole trail system on the log. But I also think our log system, to get things onto the log, needs some streamlining. Happy to help think that through because there's questions and all sorts of stuff that is actually, I feel, more of a barrier than a way to help us get our thoughts correct, to get onto the log, to sit for a long time, to then finally get re-brought up when we have some time to get it on the agenda. So I'm going to bring something to the log, but I'm also hoping to see a streamlined process of it in the future. Okay, that's it for me.
Okay. Commissioner Midami, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dania Amin. I'm the newly appointed commissioner to this committee. I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to serve the city, and I look forward to hopefully voice the public's opinions. Thank you.
We're glad to have you here. I will just briefly speak to say thank you to my fellow commissioners for humoring me this evening in this silly broccoli costume. I serve on the board of the Food Literacy Center, and I'm trying to raise $5,000 to help fight childhood obesity, which I think is in tandem with what we do here. If we fight childhood obesity and get kids on bikes and out and walking, I think that can all be accomplished at the same time. So thank you for my ridiculousness this evening. Last item tonight is public comments matters not on the agenda. Clerk, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on public comment matters that are not on the agenda tonight?
Thank you, Chair. I have no speakers for this item.
All right, wonderful. Well, while that does conclude today's agenda, I want to remind all commissioners that next week we are in old City Council chambers on March 12th at 5:30, not March 19th because of the holiday. So we will see you there. That concludes today's meeting. The meeting is adjourned.